Hey, welcome to Garage Topics. This episode we're going to take a look at resurfacing the paint, getting it nice and clean from it sitting outside for a long time. So we're going to start on the trunk, I'm going to mask it off, show you what we're going to need to do to get it to look nice, and then we'll peel the tape off, see the nice side, then we'll see the bad side. From 20 feet away, this Miata looks pretty good, but up close it looks pretty nasty. And I knew this when I bought it, so I took the gamble. I think I can repair this with some paint finishing techniques using some compounds and some clay bar, but I've already done it in the front, and look, it's a lot better. So we're gonna do this to the back, and then I'm gonna show you exactly how to do it. So first off, I'm using dish soap. Never use dish soap to regularly wash a car, but in this instance, I want it to get as clean as possible. So remove all the grease, remove all the wax, remove any grime that's been on this car, because from the looks of it, it really hasn't been washed in a long time. I'm using paper towel, but you can use a rag if you want. I just didn't want to mess up any of my rags. And again, I'm just doing this back trunk section for now to see how I can get the rest of it to look nice. I feel like I've got it washed pretty good, so now I'm going to spray it off with a hose. Being kind of careful because I got the top down, but it's all good. Just going to spray it off. Nothing better than spraying the Miata's ass with water. If you wax your car regularly, you can see that there's no wax left on here, which is what we wanted. You can go ahead and dry it off. You don't have to necessarily because of our next step with clay bar, but I just wanted to have the cleanest possible surface to start off with. And I'm going to bring it inside because every single person outside was mowing the yard. So I backed it up, brought it in the garage. Get ready to hear the horsepower. Alright, so I brought it back in the garage because everyone and their grandma was mowing the yard, probably because it was a cooler day today. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to start the clay bar process. I probably didn't really need to dry it off, but I really wanted to make sure there was no soap left over. So before we do anything, I'm going to get some simple painter's tape and put a line down the middle. I'm going to fix this side and not that side. And I picked that because it has like sticky residue kind of on there, and also that wax section. This side's easy to start, so I'm going to mask it off and get it started. In case you're wondering, Sammy T's isn't a high horsepower top boost performance shop. It's just a local restaurant that one of my buddies worked at back in the day. Thanks for the free t-shirt. Alright, so the first step I'm going to do is clay bar. What I'm going to use is I got some Showtime Instant Detailer. This is for like if you got bird poop on your car and you're not near a car wash. Spray this liberally, make sure it's wet and it's in small sections. Then I have an actual piece of clay. I used half of this clay bar for the front, so I saved the rear section. But it's like Play-Doh, if you will. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna get it flat and kind of like use it like buffing on and off. Not exactly circular motions, but just trying to get the gritty feel out of it. Because if you put your hand on now, it feels like it's sandpaper-ish, like it's got little pieces of sand stuck in it. So the hopes is to get all of that out without damage to the paint. But the key to it is to make sure that there's liberal lubrication so you don't scratch anything. Alright, first things first, we've already cleaned it off and it's dry. I'm going to get some of this and just spray it in a small area. Alright, so now we got that sprayed. I've got the clay bar here. I'm going to make sure that it's as flat as it can be without as many of these bends. So just trying to eliminate all possible instances of scratching. This smells like cinnamon. It smells actually really good in here. It smells like Big Red or Fireball, PG-13, whatever. We got it here. I make this a little bit wet too, just for good measure. And then just let it slide over. And it feels kind of rough initially because it's going all over those sand bumps. But the more you do it, the softer it gets. So just take your time. You can feel it. Use your hands. That's the best thing to do. You feel it here, it's soft. Here it's still rough, so we're making way. And the more you do it, the easier it'll get because it'll become smoother, and then this clay will just slide right over it. But just make sure you work in small sections and that there's enough lubrication that it doesn't get stuck, because if it's not wet enough, it won't glide. So this is single stage paint, meaning there's no clear, it's just one base paint. So when we go to remove it, there's going to be a little bit of black that comes up because it's just the oxidized paint. And it's even happening here with the clay bar. It's like slightly oxidized coming back. So once we're done with this, we probably need to trash this piece of clay because it's no good. So when it starts to get dirty like this, I don't want to keep putting this dirt back in. So most times I'll squinch it up and move away from that section. So this is clean and it's a flat surface, so we can get started and go ahead again. I'm gonna put the microphone in so you can see how loud it is. That means a lot of rough stuff's underneath. Alright, so now that it's all dried off from clay barring, I've noticed that when I did the hood as well, there'll be some streaks in the paint here. I wouldn't worry about the Miatas doing this because it's single stage, and this was so badly oxidized that we may have picked up some more stuff than we meant to. But this stage now is actually going to get rid of this, like, if you will, a thin skin of paint to get us to where the good paint is, get rid of all this oxidized stuff. So if you see little bits of streak in your paint on Miatas that don't have clear coat, I wouldn't worry about it because this next step of cutting and polishing is going to get rid of that top layer. Alright, so now it's all dry, we're good to go. What I'm going to recommend for this here, if you're doing a professional restoration of paint, like you've just painted it and you wanted to cut some down, I'd recommend these Meguiar's Mirror Glaze. They have different levels of harshness. This is ultra finishing compound polish, so pretty light, doesn't take off that much paint. And then for aggressive, you got compound, which will really take off some paint. I've used this before and it'll really knock some stuff off. Since this is so old and so many little dents in it, I'm not too worried about it. It's super professional. So I've actually had great results with this Ultimate Compound by Meguiar's. It takes a little bit off and it's super easy to get on and off. There might be some issues because it's so badly dried up, the paint's all dried up, oxidized. So you might have to go over it a couple times, but don't worry when your white microfiber cloth turns black from this car. So I'm gonna start off, I'm gonna get this liberally wet, mush it in. Before we do that though, give this a good old shake. I'll shake it beforehand so it's really shaked up, because you don't want to make sure it's all mixed up. Alright, so we'll spray some here. Make a happy face if you want. There we go. Happy face Picasso. Alright, and so I'll fold it on over. And if I remember, the hood was a little bit rough, so. Alright, I'm going to put a couple dots just to be safe. And same thing again, just work in small areas. There we go. Dot, dot. Happy face again. So I've got it rubbed in here, I've got it rubbed in here. You can use a power one, but I tried using a power one in the front and it was just a mess, so it's such a small area, I'm just going to do it by hand. So get it all in here. And this here I'm going to use in circular motions. And so we haven't done this very much at all, right? But what it's doing now, it's like waking up the paint, getting it soft and getting that like old crusty layer off. So just from a couple passes, you can see it's already turning black. Don't worry. I would test it on a place first. I've already done that. You probably could test it in the lower section of the door to see that it doesn't take off too much, but I've already done that. So just work it in. Make sure you scrub it in good. Don't let it get too dry. I've noticed when it gets too dry, it just completely takes all the stuff off. So I like to leave it a little bit wet. But rub it in until you can see that it could probably dry into like a paste, and that's what we want it to be, like a dry paste. So let that sit, and I'm gonna work my way over too, and then when this dries up, you'll be able to tell it'll lose its consistency, and we'll just wipe it off with a microfiber towel. All right, so the first section didn't completely dry, but you can see that it doesn't wipe off and it's not as sheeny. So what we're gonna do, I got a clean microfiber towel. Make sure I get rid of this tag. These are cheap Harbor Freight ones. If this was a fancier car like my main car, or just something that hasn't been sitting out in the sun for 25 years, I would use fancier stuff, but we're just trying to get it back to speed and not let it deteriorate any further. So it's a little bit tough here, so I'm just gonna work it in here. Same kind of deal, just waxing off. And so this is honestly the stage that I had the hardest time with. Some of it just looks like it doesn't fully come up. So just be sure to get as much of it off, and you can see all the black paint's coming off. So the rubbing off of this compound for my dried out Miata took the longest amount of time. It just takes a lot of scrubbing. And if for some reason you see that it's not coming out fully, I'd go ahead and put some more on and work it in again, because it might be that it's just soaking it all up and that there's nothing to actually rub out of the paint. All right, so I scrubbed that small section and I ran into a really big issue. So as I was scrubbing it, I just was putting light pressure on and I let it dry a little bit, because as if this paste was going into the paint. And then when I just used that small section to get the solvent off, turned my rag completely black. But what was happening is you could see that this stuff was still stuck in the paint, and you could put your fingers through and streak it, but you really couldn't get it out. So I started freaking out, but it just turns out that this is extremely oxidized. So I went ahead and got more of this stuff, applied it heavier, did it a second time. And when I was putting the solvent on, I put a lot of pressure on. Normally you don't want to do that because you want to test it out, but I realized that I needed a lot of pressure. So I made sure that this was heavily covered in this compound when it's pretty damn hard doing it in circles. Didn't let it dry, maybe let it sit for maybe 10-15 seconds. I rubbed it in as much as I could, then came back with a rag in it. I still needed a lot of effort to get it off, but that really made it so there's none of this compound stuck in the paint. So let me show you up close what I'm doing. All right, so I haven't done the small section yet. Aren't you glad I'm here to show you what to do and what not to do? But I think it's fun, so again, I would probably flip this over, but since this paint is so junked, I'm just going to use this for another pass and flip it over. But normally you would replace this because it's completely covered in black paint, because this should be white. So make sure I got a decent amount here. I'm just doing the small section. Just make sure it's coated here. And now that I'm sure that it's coated, instead of just lightly pressing, I'm going to put a decent amount of force into it, like I'm scrubbing something off of it. I wouldn't advise this first time around, but that's what this one needs. See, I'm scrubbing it, going back and forth with the circles. And you can see that it's getting a little bit lighter. All right, so I feel good about that. I'm not even gonna let it sit, I think. I'm just gonna take it off because that last time was a fiasco. So get a clean section if you can, get it on here. And mine sticks pretty decently well, so you gotta put a little bit of elbow grease into this too, get it all off. Yeah, that's working out. So look at that, all that black paint coming off. I mean, there's still some left. Clean section, just removing just the light bits of it. And it's kind of coming up. But yeah, I would not let the compound sit if your paint's really badly oxidized. You can see a section up here I haven't redone hard. I'll bring you in with the camera close so you can see what I'm talking about. All right, so this section hasn't been touched yet. It's only seen the clay bar right here. This section I've gone over, it's pretty clear, pretty clean looking. See this here, it looks like if you ever had a sunburn, it's what I think about it. It looks like it's just a line here and your fingers smudge it up. Compound stuck in the paint there. So what we're gonna do is gonna come over here again, apply a lot of pressure with the initial scrub, and then get it all out with the terry towel rag. Clean side, gonna get this off while it's still a little bit moist. And it sticks because this paint's so old. I got up almost all of it, but look. All right, so that's finally done. I feel like we got it at a good point. That clean rag that we started off with is nothing but a black mess. You can see how badly oxidized this was. And honestly, this is what took the longest part of this time. This whole section probably can take about an hour. This section here probably took about 35 minutes, 40 minutes, just making sure that you got all the compound out of the paint and that you weren't just putting dirty paint just back on. So make sure you scrub it real good. And I like to do it before we move on to the wax stage. You got this dirty one here. Designate one clean, like a clean compound rag. So this one's completely clean, never been touched. I'm just gonna use this to get any excess compound off. There's still some small imperfections in here, but like I said, this isn't a show car. This is a car that's meant to be driven, and I think it looks 1,000 times better than what we started off with. So if I really wanna get into a prime car, I'm gonna need to pull out all these dents, so I'm just gonna do a 95% job on this one, because the extra 5 would probably take a lot of time and a lot of money. All right, so all that compound's off. Let's move to the waxing stage, final stage. So the final step is we've cleaned, we've got the clay bar, got all the stuff off, we've got the old paint off, now we need to protect it. So got some McGuire's Gold Class Caranuba Plus Premium Paste Wax. I just had this laying around. When I bought my Mazda Speed 3, the guy included it. It's in pretty good shape. I used it for the front bumper, and there's still a little bit of black paint coming off from this, so I'm just gonna use this only for this car. It's gonna be in the garage most of the time, so I'm just gonna get the pad, get a little bit of wax in it, and this is straight up Mr. Miyagi, wax on, wax off. So make sure I got a decent amount of wax on here. Everything, all the chemicals are off. We're just putting the wax on. All right, so let this dry on here for a little bit. I'm gonna take it off. It smells delicious though. I love the smell of Caranuba wax. This is a clean orange one, only for wax. And this is the same thing, just wax on, wax off. This is a lot easier to remove though than the compound because that dry. But let me tell you, this looks beautiful. I don't think the videos or any pictures are gonna do this justice. I think just witnessing this firsthand is the only way to see it. Hopefully this tape line will make it look good. Finally done, I'm pretty happy because it took about an hour and 15 minutes just to do this small section. Golly, I'm tired, but it looks awesome. Hopefully you can see from back there, but let me bring you in close to take a look, and then we'll have to wait till tomorrow morning so you can see the full effect of the sun, but it looks amazing. All right, this is the side that has not been touched yet. Just grainy. And I'm gonna bring you over. And then this is the clean side. It's smooth as glass, but as I mentioned for the front, whenever you clean it, you can see dents. So I got this dent here, which kind of is obnoxious. That's another reason why I only went with the 95% job. Let me bring you over here. That's the light here. You can't see me. That's the light here, you can kind of see me. I thought this might give a better look at it too. Here, you can see this right side has not been waxed, polished, clay barred. This left side has. Alright, so I'm going to wrap it up in here. I'm going to show you guys tomorrow what it looks like, but thanks a lot for watching. And if you have any questions about this Miata restoring the paint, or have any questions about any other videos I've ever posted, feel free to leave me some comments either on the YouTube page, my website, garagetopics.com, or the Facebook page. Thanks a lot for watching, and please subscribe. Catch you later.